What's going on, man? Welcome back to the basement. I'm Ron, and if you're down in the dumps because your team is 0-1 and your team sucks, today I'm going to help you turn things around, and we are going to talk through my top 8 must-buy trade targets for Week 2 of the fantasy football season. As always, if you enjoy, leave a like, subscribe if you're new. Let's go.
VVS stones, like this froze, ice cold, ice around my body like I'm frozen. She gon' let me.
Now, I do want to say if you're 1-0, you can, of course, make trades as well. That was just for the intro, because if you're 0-1 and you're feeling really down about your team, the best way you can change that is by making some trades. So, first up, we are going to talk through Jonathan Taylor. Now, I will say, we're going to have some high-end studs up top here, and we're going to get deeper as we go into this video of cheaper buys. But I like Jonathan Taylor as our first trade target here because there might be an owner out there that is freaking out, right? He was the RB30 on the week. He had 10.8 PPR points, but I still really like Jonathan Taylor. I would have him as a top 5 running back rest of season, and it was a really wonky game script where you had a lot of offense for the Texans. You had just 43 plays for the Colts here, as shown by Jacob Gibbs, which was the fewest in the NFL. I want to say maybe the Jets were lower than that, and this was tweeted out before the Monday night game, but I'm not sure. But they just couldn't get the Texans off the field on defense. They were running up-tempo with the Colts, and you only got 43 plays despite a pretty up-tempo offense. This is not going to be the norm. We usually see about like 60 to 70 plays in a given game, and that should be better. Now, they also played against a Texans defense that is really good against the run, dating back to last year's Week 1, including the playoffs, including this year's Week 1. They are the 7th best run defense in terms of rush EPA allowed. EPA is just per play efficiency. It's like yards, touchdowns, but just per play. It's like yards contextualized is what I like to call it. Then we look at his usage, right? It was a bad matchup. Really weird. Again, I can't stress enough, like 43 plays is crazy. Like that is super, super low volume. But he had a really nice bell cow type of workload. And Scott Barrett says here, since 2021, we've only seen one season from a running back where they played on over 2/3 of the team's snaps while also running a route on over 2/3 of the team's dropbacks. You had McCaffrey last year. It's insanely rare. Now, this year, in Week 1, of course, over a full season, this list will surely thin out. But I like Jonathan Taylor here. He was out there for 95% of the snaps, 73% of the routes. Now, route percentage is just for the amount of pass plays that are happening, how often are you running a route on those pass plays? 73% of the time is really good. So he's involved in the pass game. He's involved in the rushing game. I think he had all of the running back touches in this offense as well. So if you can find somebody out there that's panicking on Jonathan Taylor, this is somebody that is going to be on a, 30 to 40 target pace, should see a lot better days in terms of efficiency with Anthony Richardson, just how explosive he is. So I think there's way better days ahead for Jonathan Taylor, including a really easy bounce back matchup here against the Packers, who just let Saquon Barkley run wild. Now, what we're going to do for these videos is it's one thing to say, okay, go out and buy Jonathan Taylor, but you guys need to know, what am I paying for him? So we're going to use Fantasy Calc. And I'll make sure to link this down below so you guys can see. This is a trade database. It, scrapes from Sleeper and a bunch of other fantasy sites, and it actually compiles trades that have happened in these leagues. Like the most recent trade that has gone down is J.K. Dobbins and JSN for Devontae Adams. This is redraft, 2 to 5 assets in the trade, 10 to 12 team leagues, half PPR and full PPR, 1 quarterback league. So if we type in Taylor, I think that what we're going to do for each player is I'll highlight like 3 trades that I like here. Now, does anything stick out? I will say, Raheem Mostert and Chris Godwin, this one right here, I would be all over that. Like, if I could take, I don't know if anyone's going to buy Raheem Mostert now that he's not playing on the Thursday game, but if you could take a running back, I'm trying to think of somebody in that range. Like, if you could take a Zamir White, if you could take a, I don't know. I mean, I like Zach Moss, but if you don't need Godwin, you can take Zach Moss and Godwin, go to Jonathan Taylor. I would be doing that all day. I mean, some of these are a little bit lopsided. I will concede that. I do want to find one that's a little bit more fair. But, yeah, I mean, I don't love these one-for-one swaps. I don't know how, frequent this is going to happen here. Kenneth Walker for Jonathan Taylor. I honestly like Kenneth Walker, but I would do that all day. I wish I could set a threshold for, like, how close I want the deal to be, because I don't want to just be like, go out and try and do. I mean, like, Hollywood Brown and Tank Dell for JT is pretty ridiculous, but if instead of Hollywood Brown, it was a receiver who, like, popped in Week 1, and you could add him to Tank Dell, I would absolutely do that. Let's see. Let's actually go to the second page here. I think I'm gonna make the assets in the trade down to 4. I think is what we'll do. Let's see. We have Rachaad White and Jerome Ford. I don't think that's gonna happen, but I would even add like a third piece there. If I could do Rachaad White, Jerome Ford, and like I would add Christian Kirk in there. And very easily do this. Oh, Christian Kirk and Chris Olave. Chris Olave is actually our next buy, but if something like this was on the table, where you have like a wide receiver you don't need, especially like a 2 wide receiver 1 flex, where maybe you have Brian Thomas off the bench, and you can, if one of these late round wide receivers hit for you, you can now move off of a Christian Kirk. I would do that for sure. And let's highlight one more here. You can see the dates here as well. JT for Debo, JT Saquon. Let's see. I think I would do Devontae Adams for Jonathan Taylor. I don't know if you're going to be able to get that, but I think that's not all that crazy. But I would say that's probably not happening in most leagues. Let's see. Is there anything else? I think trying to upgrade from a running back. Like if I could do, I think even if you took out Olave here, Diggs and Ramondre to go to JT, I wouldn't hate it. That does feel really steep though. But I don't know. We're going to get a hang of the trade calculator here. This is James Conner, Nico Collins for Jaden Reed and Jonathan Taylor. I love Nico Collins, but I actually think I would debate doing a deal like that. But yeah, I don't know. All the trades that I've kind of listed here, none of them are straight up fleeces. And I also don't want to show like trades where you're only handily winning, because most trades in real leagues are going to be pretty close. But I think those are some decent examples for JT. If you can buy low, again, I think it's going to be pretty rare, but there might be an owner out there that has Jonathan Taylor and isn't feeling too great about it. Now, I did just say Chris Olave is our next trade target here. I'm seeing people like, I did go to Twitter to see, I know Matt Harmon does a panic meter show, and he puts out a tweet. And I was just reading through it just to see who people are the most panicked on. Of course, you have like the Falcons receivers, but people are really spooked on Chris Olave. And I got to be honest, after Sunday, I was upset Chris Olave wasn't a bigger target for me in fantasy football. Now I get it, right? You can see here on the ESPN screenshot, he is the wide receiver 85. He had just 2 targets. He had a 9% target share, 3.1 PPR points. And in a game where the Saints put up 40 plus on the Panthers, you certainly want more than that. But we have 2 years of data, and we know Chris Olave is not a 9% target share guy, right? He has never been below 25% target share, which is like low-end wide receiver 1 type of usage. Target share is one of the stickiest stats we have for wide receivers. Wherever wide receivers go, they bring their targets with them. I am very confident that Chris Olave, at the absolute worst, will be a 20% plus target share guy this year. He has the ADOT, the yards per out run stuff that he's had over the last 2 years to at least be efficient on those targets. And the reason I'm buying is because we're going to get more targets his way, right? He's going to have a 20% plus target share, and this offense isn't a dumpster fire anymore. Carmichael leaves, and we get this tweet from Rich Rebar. When we look at pre-snap motion per dropback, they are up there with the Dolphins, Packers, Chiefs, and Lions. Those are 4 of the best offenses in the league with 4 of the best play callers in the league, right? Andy Reid, LaFleur, Ben Johnson, and then, of course, Mike McDaniel. So the fact that Clint Kubiak, right, new OC for the Saints, is using this much motion and getting this kind of output in week 1, again, it was versus the Panthers, but I think this is actually a buy low opportunity for Chris Olave, because I think that this offense, if it's going to be more modern and use more motion and more play action and just look like a modern offense in general, then Chris Olave is going to have the first environment in a long time for him where he can actually emerge as a true wide receiver 1 like you drafted him to be. So if I had Olave, I would actually feel really good about it, despite, again, a lot of people are panicking when it comes to Olave because the production wasn't there. But to me, the environment was so good for him that I'm feeling really good about Olave. Now, when we look at the trade database here over on Fantasy Calc, what is he trading for right now? Oh, I would do this. If somebody wanted to do a 1-for-1 swap, London for Olave, I would do that in a heartbeat. I just feel much more confident about what the Saints put out there in terms of their offense. I know that the Falcons played versus the Steelers, but Kirk Cousins' Achilles is much worse than we previously thought. I actually like this deal as well. I'm not, you guys know me. I like having wide receiver depth, but if it's in a league, this is what, 1 quarterback could start 8, so what's that? 3 receivers, 1 flex. But if it's a 10-teamer, maybe Jameson Williams wasn't even like a guy that you're going to be relying on. I don't hate doing a 2-for-1 like this. I actually like Godwin, and I don't want to put him out here as like a sell high, but he is somebody that after a 20-point game, if you can take Chris Godwin and then add a running back to him and get to Chris Olave or just some sort of small piece and get there, I would do that for sure. I don't like the idea of having to add to Ayuk to get to Olave, though. Is there anything else that stands out? Okay, so if somebody out there is running back hungry, and I don't think you can do Jerome Ford, but if you could do, let's say this is a running back off your bench that you're not putting in your lineup, you can, of course, do guys like Jerome Ford. You can do guys like Brian Robinson, and then maybe add like a receiver on top, like maybe those type of guys, and then you add like a Christian Watson on top to get to Olave. And I will say, let me know down in the comments if this is making enough sense. Like, I'm trying to show trades that look reasonable, that I would also kind of like alter to make them more fair. And I do think as well, another one here with Rachaad White. Rachaad White, to me, I would be fine selling him for Chris Olave. If, let's say, Jordan Mason emerges, maybe you have Brian Robinson on your bench, and all of a sudden Rachaad White's no use to you, or you're kind of crowded in terms of how many running backs you have and you're looking for a receiver, I do like the idea of Rachaad White for Chris Olave. Now, moving on from that, our next trade target here is another receiver. We have Malik Nabers. Now, again, somebody else people are really spooked on, and I get it. Like, the Giants looked awful, right? The Giants were toast. They were not good. But we have to remember, this was a really brutal matchup for Daniel Jones. First full NFL game off of the torn ACL. He's going to be, I don't want to call it scared, but definitely like very cautious and reserved in terms of how he's going to be playing the game. And this was just an all-time bad matchup when you have a quarterback who, kind of like Brian Flores is the DC for the Vikings, right? Here's a chart from Ryan Heath. The Vikings had the highest blitz rate last year. They're going to blitz like crazy. They send a lot of pressure. And that's like, they're smelling the blood in the water with Daniel Jones. This is already somebody that is like hindered by the ACL tear, and now you're going to send all this pressure at him. It's not a good mix. The actual stats from this game was Daniel Jones was pressured on 40% of his dropbacks, 20 total pressured dropbacks, which was the third highest this week. It was one of only 3 that were over 20 pressures on a given quarterback. And on those pressured dropbacks, he had 20 dropbacks. He was 5 for 15 for 27 yards. That's not going to stick. He's not going to see that much pressure. And the good part about it is that when he sees teams that aren't going to be blitzing like that, he is going to have a much improved offensive line. Because that might say, oh, well, the Giants' offensive line must suck. Well, no, it's not as indicative of the offensive line if your front 5 can't block the 7 or 8 that they're sending towards your quarterback, right? Like, that's a little bit on the running back, maybe sliding protections and getting tight ends to block inside. But in terms of the core 5 that they have up front, they were actually pretty good. They get Jermaine Illuminor at the right tackle spot instead of Evan Neal. I'm not a film guy, but the Giants film Twitter space was going crazy about Jermaine Illuminor at right tackle. And according to ESPN Analytics, they had the 10th highest pass block win rate on ESPN Analytics. So the offensive line is good. Again, it was really more of a mismatch of numbers than it was the front 5 couldn't hold up, right? Of course, you have Andrew Thomas, you have Jermaine Illuminor, you have, what do they have, like John Michael Schmitz in the center. The offensive line, probably the best it's been in a while. So when we get a matchup where it's not going to be Brian Flores sending exotic blitzes and putting pressure on the quarterback the entire time, there's going to be better days ahead. And even then, Malik Nabers, he was the wide receiver 32 this week, which is actually a fine floor when you consider like how poorly Marvin Harrison Jr. did. This was the worst case scenario, right? Again, 20 pressured dropbacks, 5 for 15 for 27 yards was Daniel Jones in this game. And Malik Nabers still had 7 targets, 5 catches, 66 yards, over 10 PPR points in his first game. And now he gets a Washington matchup in week 2 who just let both Chris Godwin and Mike Evans score 20-plus PPR points. He is going to make quick work of, what do they have, like Emmanuel Forbes and St. Just over there. They are not ready for Malik Nabers. I feel really good about Nabers heading into week 2. Again, the volume was there. It was just a matter of protection. I think that they will get that sorted out this next week. Now, when we look at trades for Malik Nabers, this is what comes up. Let's see. Zeke and McLaurin for Malik Nabers. I actually love that a lot. If you can take one of these like Zeke or Gus Edwards types and add it to just some random, McLaurin, or add it to, who's another one in this McLaurin range of just like, I would put Christian Kirk in there as well, of just like mid-round receivers that aren't really giving you much else. I would, this is obviously not going to happen, but Godwin straight up for Malik Nabers, I would do that. I don't think you're going to get Sutton and Charbonnet for Malik Nabers, but if you can do Sutton and running back X for Nabers, I would be all over that. What else sticks out here? Ayuk for Nabers plus, I would actually do that. I would do Ayuk for Nabers. I wouldn't do it for Swift. But if instead of Swift, this was like Najee, if it was like Najee, if it was, I don't think you're going to get Ramondre, but you know what I mean? Like, I would want a meaningful running back plus. But I do think that Swift probably gets the job done there. Anything else that sticks out? Let's see. I would do Jaden Reed for Malik Nabers. As much as I love Jaden Reed, I think the Jordan Love injury is a legit problem. Man, Puka for Malik Nabers is interesting. I think I would. If I had Puka Nacua, and let's say I'm 0-1, and the Malik Nabers owner is 1-0, and his team is so good that he's not starting Malik Nabers, and he just wants to grab Puka to store him on his bench, I think I would. But, all right, let's move on to the next one here. Let's talk through, so here's another stud as well, but I want to talk through Trey McBride. People seem very spooked on just the elite tight ends in general. McBride's one to not be scared about at all. In terms of week 1 usage for tight ends, so this is expected points per game, or expected points in this recent game based on targets, red zone targets, ADOT, all of that. Trey McBride second among all tight ends at 13.3 in expected half PPR usage. Third was Bowers at 8.7, which, by the way, I didn't have Bowers as a buy here, but if there's anybody out there in your league who has Bowers, and maybe he also has like Isaiah Likely, or maybe he has Mark Andrews and drafted Bowers as a backup, I think there's a good chance that people out there who have Brock Bowers don't really know what they have on their hands, right? It was kind of like a quiet day, like 11 PPR points, but we talked about in the rookie receiver report, my God. I mean, for a tight end, he is out there all the time, dominating targets. He was efficient. He took some of those like easy, not layup routes, but, intermediate routes across the middle, just go win, that were kind of Devontae Adams' wheelhouse. So Brock Bowers, smash pick. But with Trey McBride, I'm not worried at all. Again, he had the volume. He had 9 targets. He just got unlucky with 5 catches for 30 yards. Better days will be ahead. Kyler only threw for 162 yards in this game. McBride is clearly the focal point in this offense. I almost put Marvin Harrison Jr. as a buy in this video, but I am genuinely spooked with not how Marvin Harrison Jr. looked, but how he was kind of included in this offense. He was much more of like this downfield, high ADOT, kind of like sacrificial X that we've seen from guys like Gabe Davis in the past, and who else kind of fits that bill. But like Alec Pierce would be another one of just guys who like run deep routes, and Kyler's not someone who's going to sit in the pocket and wait for that route to develop. So I'll be honest, slightly spooked with just how that's going to work out. I think that things will iron itself out, but if I'm buying any Cardinal, it's Trey McBride, because I do think in terms of like first read target share and just first read targets in general, it's going to be a lot of McBride in the intermediate, and Marvel catch his over the top and have a couple deep balls here and there. But in terms of like moving the chains and being the engine of this offense, I think that's Trey McBride. Now we look at what you can get for or what you can offer for McBride. I would love the idea. I don't know if this is going to be in the trade database, but I do love the idea of like, if you have like, there's certainly like a shortage on tight ends right now, but if you have like Evan Ingram, like I think Evan Ingram's the perfect guy where he's like seen as kind of an elite tight end, right? And if you could take Evan Ingram and a piece and go get Trey McBride, like maybe he has an issue, right? Or maybe McCaffrey goes down on the McBride owner's team. And I will say in general, fellas, like be creative with these trades. I actually saw JJ Zachariason touch on it earlier today, where it's like you should be solving a problem for the other owner. So go see, does the McBride owner, did he have McCaffrey? Is McCaffrey now out? Can you offer him a running back that can help him in the meantime? And can you bridge the gap? Like, could you do Evan Ingram and an RB2 to fill in for McCaffrey for Trey McBride? Like, you really want to be thinking through of how can I help this player, not just a straight up swap in terms of value. Now, in terms of what we could get Trey McBride for, this is actually like about even Zay Flowers versus McBride, but it was in a league where I didn't need Zay Flowers on my team. I would do that, but I will say this is a 3 wide receiver 2 flex league, so that is actually super, super close there. McBride's I will say, by the way, if, all the creativity nonsense I just said, if that doesn't apply to you in your league and people are doing 1-for-1 conviction snap calls, if the Kyle Pitts owner, or no, if you have Kyle Pitts and the Trey McBride owner likes Pitts more than McBride, I would do that all day, but I don't think that's going to be available to you. But like I said, McBride is my tight end 1 rest of season. Keenan Allen and Freiermuth for McBride. You know what? I would do that. I know Keenan Allen got a ton of targets. We're going to talk about him probably in the sells video we're going to do tomorrow. I don't think that holds. The Bears' offense looked so bad. They built it out of Keenan Allen, and I think that moving forward, they're going to alter that for sure. What else? If you can add Likely in a piece, of course, it's not going to be Lazard, but if you could do Likely, trying to think of like what that could be. Like, could you do likely and I really got to pull up like the leading scorers on the week, but could you do likely? Could you do likely in Deontay Johnson? I know that he didn't score well. Maybe someone wants to buy low on Deontay. I'm trying to see. Could you do likely in Jameson Williams for Trey McBride? I think I would do that as well. And I don't even really think Jameson Williams is a trade away player. I would do Kelsey straight up for McBride. Like I said, he's my tight end 1. What else is kind of hidden in here? We'll find one more that I would feel good about doing for Trey McBride. Let's go back. Or actually, now we're getting to the 6th here. Pitt straight up again. Nabers for McBride and Kirk. No, thank you. What else? Of course, I would do Andrew straight up for McBride. I don't think that that's going to be on the table, though. All right, I think we covered enough. There's nothing else that really sticks out. I would do this too. Like if I did Waddle and Freiermuth for McBride, and even if it wasn't Devontae Smith, if it was a lesser receiver than that, even maybe you buy low on like DK Metcalf here instead of Devontae Smith. I would do that as well. Now I believe this is going to be our 5th trade target here. We have Tank Dell. You guys know I love this guy all offseason. If anyone is sweating about Tank Dell being like the odd man out and not putting up a top 12 finish like Stephon Diggs, Nico Collins, I'd be buying. I think this is offense, how it's going to run on a weekly basis is you're going to have 2 out of 3 of the Texans wide receivers put up good weeks. This week it was Diggs and Nico Collins. Maybe next week it'll be Tank Dell and Stephon Diggs. Maybe the week after that it'll be Nico Collins and Tank Dell. But I think that it's never going to be all 3. And if you can buy on a little bit of concern about that early on in the season, I absolutely would. What they're doing with Tank Dell is actually really nice. Now, if you want to get into philosophies, it's a little bit rough where pretty much what's happening is Tank Dell only out there for like 67% of the snaps because when it's a run play, he's not on the field. But when it's a pass play, he's on the field 87% of the time. So you can kind of, if you're a defense, you can kind of infer that if Tank Dell's on the field, they're going to pass the ball, but maybe Tank Dell's only coming on in like obvious passing situations. I don't know, but all of these guys over 80% route participation, almost all of them over 20% target share. All of that is usable on a weekly basis, and it's perfect. Dwayne McFarland says here, can't hope for much more than that. All 3 guys were in play. Any concern should mostly be offset by the weekly ceiling of this offense. And Tank Dell actually ends Sunday as the wide receiver 15 in expected points here at 14.7. Of course, he came up empty on that, but the usage was there. The volume was there. The 8-out was there. The targets were there. The production will follow as well. And they have a matchup versus Chicago this week. Nico Collins should get a lot of coverage from Jalen Johnson. This could be the Tank Dell squeaky wheel game. So I am 100% buying. Now, when we look at where he is getting traded on the trade database here, let's see. Can you buy him for cheap? Wow. I mean, I don't think that that's on the table, but Godwin for Malik Nabers and Tank Dell, of course. Marvin Harrison Jr. for Tank Dell and Coleman. I wouldn't do that, but I would do Marv for Tank Dell and a piece. I would. I'm trying to think of like what that piece could be. Can you do Marv for Tank Dell? Can you do Marv for like Tank Dell and like Lad McConkey? I think that's pretty even, and I would debate that pretty heavily. Of course, I would do this. If you don't need Jerome Ford in your lineup, Jerome Ford for Tank Dell, that's an easy one for me. Let's spot one more here for you guys. I would do this too. If I could do McLaurin straight up for Tank Dell, I would. What about a cross-position one, though? Raheem Mostert for Tank Dell. I don't know if that's still on the table with Raheem Mostert banged up, but Raheem Mostert for Tank Dell, I would do that all day long as well. Now, our next player, we have our 7th trade target here. Actually, no, this is our 6th trade target. My bad. Najee Harris. He comes out here, puts up, what was it like? I think he put up like 8.9 PPR points. He finishes the RB35. But what I want to reiterate is that, yes, he had a bad game, but I think this Falcons defense is kind of slept on, right? They have, who is it? Is it Grady Jarrett in the middle? They have a good defense. Since last year's week 1 of 2023 through the playoffs, they have the 10th best EPA defense, the 2nd best EPA defense versus the rush. So they are really, really good at stopping the run. And of course, when you have Justin Fields and Arthur Smith, he wants to run the ball. Justin Fields had 14 carries. Najee Harris had 20-plus carries. So they want to run the ball a ton, and the Falcons just aren't going to be conducive to that kind of game plan. I really think that we're going to see much better days ahead here. They get the Denver Broncos this week, who have the 23rd ranked EPA defense since week 1 of last year. That is average, pedestrian, whatever you want to call it. And if we can get this run defense or this run offense, right, with Justin Fields creating a lot of efficiency for the running backs between the tackles, right, kind of like what he did for Khalil Herbert and kind of like what we've seen Jalen Hurts and Saquon and Lamar and all of his running backs over the years, that is going to open a lot of things up for Najee Harris. He still was the RB19 in expected points per game. He had 14.1 expected points. He had 20 carries. He was out there a bunch. He had 2 targets as well. So this is going to be this bell cow that gets like 20-plus touches per game. I think it's probably one of the best buy low opportunities you'll get if you are struggling at the running back position. Now with Najee Harris, what is he trading for? Are people how sour are people on Najee? If I could do Zamir White for Najee straight up, I would. Brian Thomas for Najee, I can't get there. I would do Gus Edwards, and like even if you had to add a piece to Gus Edwards, I would do that. Calvin Ridley for Najee Harris, If I didn't need a receiver, I would. If I was in a situation where this made sense to move on from Ridley for Najee, I would. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, this is another one. If I could take Eckler and like literally any other piece on top of that, if I could do Eckler and like Demarcus Robinson for Najee Harris, I would. I don't think that that's out there though. Man, this one's good. Jameson Williams for Najee Harris. I like Jameson Williams, but that's a deal I probably would do. A.D. Mitchell and DeAndre Hopkins is a tough one. I would do Corum for Najee. A.D. Mitchell and DeAndre Hopkins. I really like A.D. Mitchell, but this is like about my breaking point. A 2-for-1 where you're giving up a lot of wide receiver depth. It'd have to be a situation, again, where you could withstand taking on, sort of depleting your depth a little bit for a high-end running back. But I do, in terms of like just pure value, I would do that as well. Now, our 7th trade target here, that's not where I want to be, is Amari Cooper. People, again, like I do want to just target like the most doom and gloom situations here, right? We're talking the Steelers. We're talking the Giants. We're talking, who else did we talk about? People are upset about the Saints for whatever reason, but I want to be targeting situations people are just like fully panicking on the whole thing, shut the whole thing down. And it's, of course, the Deshaun Watson stuff. I'm not going to speak directly on it, but of course, like a new thing comes out about Deshaun Watson. He looks awful versus a Dallas defense that's actually really good. And people are now, oh my goodness, Deshaun Watson is terrible. It's the worst contract in football, which it of course is. But the environment is what we have to focus in on, okay? The Browns had the 5th highest pace, which is just like remaining seconds on the play clock. They want to play really fast. They had the highest neutral pass rate this week. So we have an environment where they want to play fast and pass the ball, which is what we're going to see when they don't have Nick Chubb in the lineup. And Amari Cooper was given a ton of volume. He ended up as the wide receiver 14 in expected points this week. He definitely, he ended up as the wide receiver 79 on the week. But in terms of usage, he was a top 15 guy. And I think that we get a bounce back spot here versus the Jaguars, where Deshaun Watson could bounce back, right? You have Waddle and Tyreek who put up great games versus the Jaguars this week. They allowed the 11th most points to wide receivers last season. And without Njoku, we're going to see a lot of Amari Cooper. Now, if Deshaun Watson is as bad as everyone's freaking out about, then we get Jameis Winston. And if Jameis Winston comes in and gives us the 30 touchdown, 30 interception experience, which with, again, the league's highest passing rate and the 5th highest neutral pace, then we're really cooking here. So Amari Cooper is someone that I'm not panicking on, and I'm actually buying. So if you can go out there and get him, I absolutely would. Let's see what he's trading for. I do wonder. I think, like I said, people are really spooked on the Deshaun Watson stuff. Again, I mean, you don't want to have really any pieces in this offense, but I mean, this is getting crazy. Keon Coleman for Amari Cooper, yes, please. Puka for Amari and Zay Flowers. I can't get there. I can't do that, no. Worthy for Cooper is really close, but I'll actually lean Cooper there. Or I'll lean Worthy there. My bad. I misspoke. Deontay in London for Amari Cooper and Christian Kirk. No, I can't get there. Let's see. Does anything else stick out? Tyjae Spears for Amari Cooper. I mean, of course. Isaiah Likely. If I had Isaiah Likely and I already had like a sick tight end in front of him, like let's say you have McBride and you just had Isaiah Likely as your last round pick, I would do that all day. Jordan Mason and JSN for Amari Cooper. Ooh, that's a close one. That is a close one. Jordan Mason and JSN. This is assuming that you already have an RB2. You don't need Jordan Mason in your lineup. And then how do we feel about JSN? I got to be honest, I'm pretty spooked on JSN. I think I take Amari here. Like, this is a really close one. But that's about my breaking point. I would take Amari Cooper on that side of the deal. Rashad White for Amari Cooper and a running back. I love that as well. Now, our last trade target here. I really didn't mean for this to run this long, but when we look for individual real trades, these do run long. Again, let me know how you guys feel about that. I think this is the best way to do it, where I can show you guys real trades that have happened, but if they feel like a waste of breath, let me know. Now, the last one I have here is Ladd McConkey, right? A lot of these guys are buy lows. I want to be buying high on Ladd McConkey, all right? He finishes as the wide receiver 19 this week, and he gets 7 targets. He gets a touchdown where he makes 2 guys miss. And like I said, I just want to buy high on Ladd McConkey. I don't know if people are going to move him up as much as they should. And, it's just like most people in their heads are just going to be like, oh, it's one game. Let's sell high on this guy. Well, when it comes to rookie wide receivers, you guys know these are guys we don't want to sell high on because they can oftentimes be league winners, right? Like Ladd McConkey feels like he could be this year's, Jaden Reed, Zay Flowers type, where he is just on the fringes of wide receiver 2 all year long, someone you're starting constantly. And he led all rookies in expected points here. He had 13.1 expected points. He was the wide receiver 21 in usage, finishes as the wide receiver 19. He was the only rookie wide receiver to crack the top 24 in terms of expected points, which is, again, just based on your targets, red zone targets, how many points should you be scoring. So he was peppered. He was the number 1 target for a Justin Herbert offense, and he had an end zone target. He just had it all. Got open at will, made people miss. If that is what he's going to look like in his first game, then I want to see more of that. He didn't even run the full share of routes. He had like a 76 or 77% route share. So the sky is the limit for Ladd McConkey, and I want to be buying. Now, in terms of what you can get him for, or what you can pay to get to Ladd McConkey, let's see. He goes for, wow, Brian Thomas or Ladd. That's just too dead even there. I would do it. I would actually sell Goddard for Ladd. Even if I didn't have a tight end behind him, I would almost rather stream and add a flex option in Ladd McConkey. Wow, Curtis Samuel and Terry McLaurin for Ladd McConkey. I would do that. I would. It says we're losing there, but I actually would. Curtis Samuel, 30% of the routes. Maybe that goes up. I don't know if it goes up ever to a spot where you're comfortable starting him. And Jaden Daniels' passing offense, I just don't want any pieces in that at this point. London for Ladd McConkey. That is the ultimate sell low. I can't get there yet, but I see the vision. A.D. Mitchell and Jordan Addison, I would do that all day as well. And then Swift for Ladd McConkey, That's about as close as I'll get in terms of value there. Like, that's my breaking point. And I would only do it again if you had like a third running back where Swift is never cracking your lineup and you need flex depth. Now, that is going to do it for us today. As always, I will have my rest of season rankings uploaded by tonight on the Patreon, patreon.com/Ron Stewart. So when you're making these trades, you can see, where does Ron have Jonathan Taylor ranked versus Kyron Williams, right? This guy wants my Kyron, I want his Jonathan Taylor. And you can kind of look through my rest of season rankings as you're making trades. Of course, on top of that on the Patreon, you get my weekly rankings, you get my waiver wire article every single week, you get my private start-sit streams on Sunday. All of that good stuff can be found in the description and the comment section down below. But if you can't support there, just leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and I will see y'all in the next one.
Stones, like this froze, ice cold, ice around my body like I'm